we can have an accrual where if it ever makes money, we can pay ourselves back. But we cannot take one thin dime for gas sales, for landing fees, for the FBO's real cheap rent that he's got, or anything else. Every dime we get doesn't come to the city, none of it. It goes back into the airport.
Is that true of the hangar rentals too?
That's true of the hangar rentals. This is, I'm sorry, anything but property tax. Okay? Now we've had some.
We get the property tax.
You get a good chunk of it, Steve. There's been a lot of discussions, and there was again today, and the airport board's really been struggling at this. Everyone's weighed in. I'm not, these guys work hard. This is a hard board to be on. Because we've got hangars that they own them forever, kind of, and pay us rent. And there's hangars that after 30 years they come back to the city. They have different rates, and one of the things we're saying is, well, if they don't get to keep them, then they let them run down and we get less sales tax. Well, that hurts you more than it does us. But the city gets some, the school gets some, the county gets some. So we're making decisions. And we need to have a county person that's there to see, because it's allowed on our board, and look to what it does to the whole community, depending on our decisions. So we can't keep any money for the airport. Now the arguments have been going back and forth on Facebook that if a pilot comes, and even though he's going to put his clients in a limousine and shove them over to Park City, that he may still stay in a hotel and buy some food. So there's economic generators, okay? But I could say, well, if we move the airport, how many factories and houses, what would they generate? It's just, economic is a hard thing to put your finger on. A new dollar in the community generates 7 times before it ends. It's, you know, if I pay Kendall, he goes and gets a pair of shoes, and the shoemaker buys some gas, and the gas guy buys some glasses, and it rolls around 7 times. She's an economics professor. Okay? Well, but what I'm being told is there's some old talk. It's debated whether it's 7, but there's economics from the airport. So there are those that want the airport expanded and say, oh gee, it'll benefit us. So it's a trade-off with noise and whatever. Try to remind Dave that I asked the question to one of our consultants. The big aircraft is quieter than they used to be, but mostly are not. But they're not quieter than B2. They're not quieter than B2. That's why you have noise ordinances and everything around bigger airports. I can hear them, Heidi can hear them, I don't know. Okay, we have to do airport layout plans where we design where all this fits. And we're looking at where we can get in the other FBO. We're in that process, we think there's room, okay?
Well, Ron, doesn't the city have a business plan for the airport?
Not a business plan. The FAA won't fund a business plan. They tell you need to break even if you can, but they won't fund a business plan. We've asked our consultant that. We may have to dig up some of our own money.
Right now you have no idea if you're making money or losing money.
Well,
right.
We do when we write a check, I guess. Okay, one of the things I requested in January, I'm a new kid and I'm a knothead, and I come in and I got all over Mark and I said, I want to be able to open that budget. Mark's good, he knows where it's at, but I couldn't find it all. And so I said, I want it all in one place. I want it so if anyone here walks in and said, how much did it make and lose? Now Mark's put that together 5 years. Income and revenue, probably anyone that wants it, he'll email it to you. So he's doing that work, but he had to pull that together. But I've asked him, and he asked to wait until July 1, but he said he would, so that it'll all be in one place. And then we can start to see if it's income or not income, okay? But it's different, because if we all of a sudden have to buy the Mavericks, I mean, first of all, it's $1.5 million, but most of that, isn't our money. It's federal money, right? So it's free. But we pay roughly 5%, the state pays 5%, okay? The other papers I have is the other rule book that's a couple hundred pages long, and it kind of says, in some ways, repeats, but there's another clause in here that talks, the sponsor should adopt and enforce adequate rules, regulation, and ordinances as necessary to ensure safety and efficiency of the airport and to protect the public using the airport. One of the most important functions of local regulations is to control the use of the airport in a manner that will eliminate hazards to aircraft. Now, there is a place in here that says, well, the sponsor can limit them and whatever, but the FAA has to say, yeah, we agree, it's okay if you do. So they have the ultimate say. But here's, I mean, how are they going to say to us, you can't stop the big planes. When you get to 500 takeoff and landings, that's 250 planes, guys. That's takeoff and landing is one plane. So we have 250 C-2s landing in a year, a little less than one a day. Now most of those come during
Sundance.
Okay, but that's what it is. And here's what they're saying. I mean, I can't get my head around it. It's not safe for 250 planes to land in a year. But it's okay to have one of them, or two of them, or three of them, or 20, or 100, or 150. It doesn't get unsafe till you hit 250. I mean, that's how I see it, because I've read 2 or 3 places that if it's unsafe, we can restrict them. But the FAA won't let us restrict them. And then I hear comments that, what about the city's liability? Well, whose liability is it? We're trying to restrict them. They're the ones saying we can.
But Ron, didn't you say that we could charge them a discriminatory fee?
Okay, let me go back to 2003. Let me go clear back to 2003. If back in 2003, and I've been reminded we're a new council, and the other councils and airport board, whatever, and our consultant, everybody heard those comments. I didn't. I missed that. But since 2003, there's been an awareness to the public. That's the one thing. We don't want it. The other thing is it coming anyway? So those things of the landing and the restrictions and these other things would have worked a lot better in 2003. But we've had 3 mayors and a bunch of council, an airport board. There's too much blame to go around. It can fit a lot of people. But we haven't done it. We haven't come back to the public. We haven't done anything to slow the B2s, B3s. Our FBO loves the big planes, the C2s, sorry. He loves them. We got 35, 6, 4, whatever responses just recently from pilots, I'll get to it, that weighed in that they want another FBO because they will not buy gas here. They'll go to any other airport. They don't get treated right. They can't get service on their planes. And he come to our meeting and defended that my business model is to take care of big planes. He's the FBO. He can do what he wants. But he's encouraging big planes. And he says, I'm doing y'all a favor. And maybe he is. That's the time to weigh into these guys and maybe later to us. Because he says, one of these things in his lease says he should have a flight school. Why does the FAA want him to have a flight school? Because we're losing pilots. There's less and less pilots, and so they want him to be training new pilots. Well, it's in his lease that he'll have a flight school. He doesn't. And he comes to us and says, I'm doing all your citizens a favor. They don't like airplane noise, so I don't do flight schools. Flight schools are a problem. They go up and they land and they do touch and go and touch and go. Can we live by it? But we got a B2 airport. We don't want C2s. We got to at least let B2s be there. So he's doing us a favor. He didn't. Okay.
My question though.
Yes. Okay.
And for Dave as well, is because you were saying, look, there's no way we can really stop those airplanes, the C2s, because you rejected you redirected the question back to me, how are you going to stop it? And you said that if we were to be discriminatory against them, we would get in some type of trouble.
Right, and he's touched on it right now. The problem is the FAA says, oh yeah, you can't be discriminatory, you can't be punitive in the way that you charge. In other words, you can't charge more than what the maximum they would pay anywhere else. Okay? Then it becomes punitive and it's discriminatory. But 2 pages earlier, they said, yeah, you can restrict them.
That's what you were saying, one of your first comments is that
That's right, it's hard. It's all over the
So,
place.
I guess I want to try to see if we can get a consensus, or maybe we don't know.
We don't.
We don't
I
know.
think that's ultimately
Okay.
it. We need an answer, a definitive answer from the FAA. What exactly can we do to mitigate this? Because we don't want to go to a bigger airport. You know, we want to keep it the way it is. And yes, we do get C2 aircraft in here, but where exactly are you going to stop? And are you really going to stop, or are you just saying that so, because they would like all the airports, the feeder airports, and ours would be like a standby airport, you know. We're not going to get, you know, scheduled service. We can't get an approach. Now, you know, an instrument approach that would satisfy a scheduled service area, okay? That's the way it is now, but technology is always changing. So, you know, you say, okay, here's our goal, but unfortunately the goalposts keep moving. So you got to keep track of where it's going, what direction it's going. So that's why we're trying to get all the numbers to answer your question about how much is it going to cost if we do, how much is it going to cost if we don't. We don't have those numbers yet, and so it's difficult for us to answer.
Right.
Let me
But back
move on.
to the question that Steve was asking earlier. It's almost unbelievable, but it's the federal government, so I believe it, is that they're saying you're the sponsor of the airport, but you're not allowed to stop a C2 plane even though it's a B2 airport.
But we have methodologies. Let me read 2 paragraphs, and then I've got part of what I think could be our solution.
Oh, good.
I'm serious.
Hang on.
I'm serious. A compensatory rate structure may be imposed on users by ordinance. 2-part landing fees. An airport proprietor, that's us, may impose a 2-part landing fee consisting of a combination of per operation charge and a weight-based charge. Then it gives kind of some guidelines, but we can do it. And we can charge, listen up, liability concerned people, a reasonable cost of insuring against liability. So if we're got a B2 airport and they just keep coming and we can't stop them and we raise the fees and they're from Park City and Radford Steel and they can pay anything and they come. We can have them pay insurance lease so if they crash, you know, they're coming in, we told them it wasn't safe. I learned one other thing this morning, I'm not going to mention it, but let me just mention this and close it. I'm not going to give you the one solution. It's a little harsh, but if we have to get there. But I met this, on Lincoln Day, I talked to all 5 members, 4 members of our congressional delegation and the governor, face to face, eyeball to eyeball. I think Colleen talked to 2 or 3. Huh?
You had to look.
What? Pat's looked down, and I saw his eyeballs. Every single one of them committed to help us with this issue. Because, as Hatch put it, you know, FAA's got problems and they're going to come before us this year and we'll help you. What I have done, because I was in Congress and we did wilderness bills and it's hard to get those guys all together at once, is I met for 3 hours this morning with Chaffetz's representative, and she will be reaching out to the 2 senators. She's got all this material. I bored her with even more of it. Well, but she's got it, and I'm going to give you a copy of it. but we're gonna go have the FAA tell us in front of Congress that we can't stop B-C2s, but we have to build an airport for them. The issue of whether they'll cut off funding is, I've never seen it in writing. I've never seen an authority. They keep saying, if you don't go to C2, we may not do the discretionary money. They have to give us the 150. But I'd like them to tell my senator and my congressman that if we operate a good, safe B-2 airport for 15 years and it needs to be rebuilt, that they won't help us rebuild it because they want a bigger one. If they want to say that, then we'll deal with it. So I'm done.
You have a question relevant